we have new people here, i.e. people who are brand new to the Padmasambhava Meditation Center, if you all would feel comfortable to just briefly introduce yourselves to us here as well. So I'll start. My name is Christina Monson. I know many of you. Some of you I think I don't know. And so I'm happy to see some new faces, at least some new names, if your video isn't on. I'm one of the teachers here at the Padmasambhava Meditation Center. And at the present moment, I'm in Nepal, which is where I spend about half of my time. I'm coming into this meditation session with all of you today with a bit of a heavy heart. I've been, I would say, maybe looking at the news more than would be wise. I noticed in myself a bit of an obsession with checking the news on an hourly basis. So I do notice it's the first thing I'm doing in the morning. And so I'm showing up this morning with a bit of heaviness in my heart, more than a bit. So that's where I am right now. And I see lots of names and faces, and I would just like to invite those of you who are new to our community here to introduce yourselves to us, if you feel comfortable doing that before we begin this evening. And you can just, I believe, Tracy, everyone can unmute themselves and just say a couple words. Who are you, where are you, and what are you bringing to the session tonight?
Right, everybody can go to where their picture is, and you see when you scroll over, there's a mute or unmute button. You can also control your microphone from the lower left corner of the screen. So you can mute or unmute yourself from there as well.
And I definitely would love to also have a check-in from those of us here in the community that are known to each other. So let's first invite those who are new, if there's anyone brand new tonight.
I can go. My name is Manisha. I live in New Jersey, and
Hi.
several people have suggested that I explore meditation. I've not really done it. I did a 20-minute, I think through the Chopra Center this afternoon. And, you know, I've never done it before, so I don't know if I did it right. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong. So when I saw this pop up, I wanted to explore it a little bit more. So thank you for having me.
Well, wonderful. Welcome, Manisha. So happy that you're with us.
I'm Piero Ferracuti, and I'm in San Jose, California. So,
hi, Piero. Nice to see you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi there. I'll share because that was my dad. But I'm in Boston. My name is Alexia.
Great. Hi, Alexia. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, I'll share too, since that was my dad and my sister.
All right. I love it when we have a family members join.
We're all in different locations. But my name is Kiara and I'm in San Jose.
Great. Hi, Kiara. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And I'll just say hello. This is Allison G. I'm an old student of Rinpoche's, but Kiero is my partner. And the two lovely ladies who just said hello are his daughters.
Oh, wonderful. Well, welcome to all of you. So happy that you're joining us this evening. And thanks, Allison. Welcome. Anybody else there who would like to introduce themselves and just do a very brief check-in?
Hey there, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, yes.
Hi there, my name's Darren, and I've just been to the Padmasambhava Center a couple times when Soksei Rinpoche was here, and my first teacher was Tuku Urchin Rinpoche, and I'm here in Denver.
Oh, welcome to you. So happy that you're joining us.
Thank you.
My first teacher was Tuku Urchin Rinpoche as well. So nice to hear that name.
Yeah.
Who else? And now, anybody, please, just if you feel like giving us a check-in, where are you tonight? What are you bringing to the meditation session?
Janet, I see you waving. Can I help you unmute yourself so you can say hi? Okay. Let me see. Oh, it's not letting me. See if you can find.
To me, this
No,
Janet.
Janet Chapman. Looks like,
Okay.
yeah. Look to see if you can unmute by pressing a blue button or the microphone at the bottom of the screen. There you go.
Hello.
Great.
Hello, Janet.
Hello. I've been doing income taxes all day and technically challenged, so I'm glad to stop and do this. I'm from Montrose, Colorado.
Welcome, Janet. All right. Anyone else like to say hello before we begin this evening?
I'll say hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Carol. I'm a longtime student of Choji Rinpoche and Soks Rinpoche. And I actually just got back from Bodh Gaya, India, where I spent 6 weeks with him. And I got back on March 11th, so I'm really happy to be connecting because coming back from, such a blessed, long in saturation with the teachers and the Dharma, back into this whole crazy situation, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to connect with you online.
Welcome, Carol. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And I'll say hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, Lori. Hi.
Oh, I don't have internet at my house right now, and I couldn't figure out how to unmute my phone. But I, like Carol, am very glad to be back. I got back about 10 days ago and missed you in Parfing, Christina, but had a good session there, and I'm just glad to see everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lori. All right. Anyone else like to say hello before we begin? All right. So this is the regular Thursday night open meditation that we do at the Padmasambhava Meditation Center. And for those of you who don't know, we're located in Denver, Colorado, in terms of the physical space that we have there. And as you can see as well, we have a community of practitioners who are all over the world. The center itself is located spiritually within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And our regular Thursday night meditation is a completely open meditation to everyone and anyone who's interested in exploring meditation, and has no requirements of any belief or background whatsoever. So everybody most welcome to join us. And I just put another word in for a course that we're starting next week on Tuesday nights, which is an introduction to meditation course. And just in the same way, that's also, of course, open to everybody from any background, any faith, any belief system whatsoever. We're going to, over a period of 6 weeks on a weekly basis, dive a little bit deeper into some different meditation techniques. And it will require some homework of you in terms of meditation. We'll have some reading support to go with that. I'll be co-teaching that along with another teacher, Jim, who is a presence and one of the real steadfast holders of our meditation center in Denver. So we encourage anyone who's interested to join us for that as well. We'll be starting next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. So
Chris, before you start, I'm Tracy for everybody who doesn't know. I just copied the link to register for that new Intro to Meditation course, the 6-week course Christina just described, into the chat. So you can click that and register if you're interested.
Thank you, Tracy. Tracy, did you want to check in as well?
I'm feeling better than I felt in 2 weeks. Today, really, my mind feels back to normal after having had a fever for a long time. And yeah, so I'm really glad to be here and glad to have energy at 7 p.m. Denver time. Yeah,
Right.
and great to see. It's really great to see everybody, even remotely.
Yeah. Wonderful. Jim, I see Jim's face just pop up. Jim, I was just talking a little bit about the course for next week. Do you want to just introduce yourself and check in briefly?
Sure. Yeah, I heard. It's great to see everybody here. I think it's really fun that we can bring the community together, those that aren't living in Denver. It's a great opportunity for us to be together. And so this Introduction to Meditation program, the 6-week course, it came about because we had a lot of requests for people to go through a little bit deeper dive into why we meditate. And then we get the question all the time of people asking, am I doing it right? And so I think that when Chris and I talked about how we want this program to work, the thing that we want you to leave with at the end of the program is an understanding of what meditation is, why we do it, and then how you can feel confident that you're doing it the right way at the end of 6 weeks. So I hope you can all join us, and I look forward to it.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, and I want to emphasize that the course is for anybody and everybody who meditates, whether you have a deep, long, decade practice of it, or whether you're also brand new to the practice. As I was preparing for the first session yesterday, I was benefiting so much from reading back kind of, where do we begin, really, in terms of creating a new relationship with our mind, our body, and our feelings. So I'm going to start tonight by asking, does anybody have a question about meditation based on their own practice, or based on something that they've read or something that they'd like to learn about? All right. So I'm guessing no questions means everybody's really comfortable, whether they've been meditating, maybe that's why there's no questions, or whether you have a stable practice and it means that it is clear to you. Well, let's do some meditation. I am going to begin tonight by just giving a couple pointers again on where we start in our body. And so sometimes when I teach meditation, a lot of questions come up about mind. What are we supposed to be doing? How do you relate to what's going on in your mind? And I'd like to introduce tonight from the perspective of body. In fact, meditation is very much of a somatic practice. And by that, I mean it's a practice of becoming fully present in our body. And I remember when I was first starting to meditate, this was when I was in my last years of high school, and I had a lot of tests and things going on. And I remember saying to a teacher I had, I began, in fact, meditation within the Zen Buddhist tradition. And so I learned the techniques of Zazen meditation, just sitting. And I said to a teacher one time, yeah, I just feel like I don't have any, I need some time to think. I don't have enough time to think. And the teacher said to me, well, really? Is that what you need? Aren't you thinking all the time? And I realized, yeah, is that really what I'm looking for? Time to think? No, I'm actually looking for some space around my thinking. So in some ways, meditation is a way of doing that. And we start by becoming fully present in our body. And so posture is important when we practice. And it doesn't really matter whether you're sitting on the floor or whether you're sitting on a chair. What matters more is that you hold your body as upright as you can, as is possible for you. And so there's a beautiful metaphor of just imagining that there's a string on the top of your head and it just pulls your body up. So you kind of straighten up and then you just relax a little bit from that. So it's the metaphor of not too tight and not too loose in your body. When we hold the body upright, our attention awakens. And yet if we hold with too much rigidity and tension, then we can also block just the natural flow of our breath. So sitting upright in a way that's comfortable for you, whether you're on the floor, whether you're in your chair, it doesn't matter. And we're going to begin by practicing to focus our attention on a sound. And so using a focal point for our intention is a very helpful way when we're learning how to meditate to give some support for the mind. So we're relaxed and upright in our body. Our breathing is completely natural and normal. And we're going to use the sound of a bell as a support for focusing our attention. So when I ring the bell, what I invite all of you to do is just bring your attention to the sound and stay with the sound, just breathing naturally, listening to the sound for as long as it remains. All right. So just take a moment before we begin to exhale and really feel yourself sink into your body, being present there. And as I ring the bell, then bring your attention to the sound of the bell and focus on that sound as long as you can hear it. Could you all hear the other sounds in the background competing with the bell? My neighbors are blowing their conch shell during their morning puja ritual. And there's a lot of birds that are already awake in Nepal. So meditation is a way of allowing us to focus our mind and our attention. And doing that brings the possibility for a settling down of conceptual thinking. So how was that? What did you just experience? Anybody?
I'll go. I think that for me, it really helps me in stopping, or at least relaxing, that chain of thought, the endless chain of thought that you referred to earlier. I mean, it just sort of all comes down to that sound, and then the sound reverberates, and it's kind of like looking at a painting in a way. I mean, that can be a very meditative process as well.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah. Who else? What did you just experience?
I think it was interesting, the sound of the bell and then the sound of no bell.
What was interesting about that?
Well, because there was something there and then there was that space before my mind filled in with the sounds that were happening in my household.
Uh-huh. Great. Thank you. Yeah, there was a form sound that was a support, and then it also disappeared, leaving a little bit of gap and openness. Beautifully said. In fact, I would say that's really the secret core essence of meditation practice, to widen that gap and spaciousness. That's in fact accessible to us all the time. Who else?
Can I speak? I guess so.
Yes, please, Carol. Yes.
I mean, normally when I do this meditation, I try not to label it like, oh, Christine's playing a bell, and just hear it as pure sound. But tonight I was more like, oh, there's the bell, and she hit it kind of hard, and it was a little harsh, and then it got a little less harsh. So I wasn't practicing it the way, optimally. I was thinking about what it was and making judgments about the quality of the sound. So I completely missed the boat normally, but usually I just try not to label it as, oh, that's a bell, just to hear it as pure sound. But tonight I noticed I got an F in that tonight.
Thank you for sharing that, Carol. And I would just point out to everybody that the judgment of our practice, whatever meditation practice we're doing, is kind of the friend that many of us bring along into it. So welcoming that friend, at least acknowledging that friend, and if you feel like you can give that friend a seat next to you, but it doesn't mean you have to listen to her. Anyone else would like to share what that was like for you?
So I noticed kind of a similar thing to that. I had my headphones on, and so that was very striking. The sound was quite a shock, and so I felt like this immediate kind of like tensing, like that kind of rush of energy. And then I was like, oh, like, should I, like, the reaction immediately was I need to take my headphones off because that was so loud. And I'm like, so I had like this kind of interaction with that where at first it was like an unconscious kind of tensing, but then the awareness of that. And then it came back to like this issue I'm having with discernment, like what is helpful. Absolutely, because it seemed like it could be helpful to leave the headphones on and potentially like, you know, my hearing will be what it would be, you know, is the narrative, but it could also be helpful to take them off. Like both would be gentle. So it's that kind of struggle that I'm having recently that came up in that brief bell ringing. Thank you. And I don't know how to work with that, but.
Thank you for sharing that. So can you explain a little bit more the discernment of kind of a decision to make in terms of what would be most helpful for you in the practice?
Yeah. Like, is it harmful to take the headphones off and in a way like not staying present with the sound, but being kind to my ears, or would it be better to just leave them on and stay with the sound no matter what? So this is kind of, like, if that makes sense, like that discernment, when sometimes it feels like stuck between a rock and a hard place, like not knowing what to do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I did ring the bell very strongly because I was thinking, will they be able to hear it?
I'm so glad you did. It was such a
I really rang it hard. Let's do this. Let's do it again. And let's use this same technique. The bell is the focus, the sound of the bell. I won't ring it quite as hard. When you hear it, bring your attention to that sound and just stay with it as long as it lasts. Breathing is just natural. Don't forget to breathe either. Don't hold your breath. Don't contrive or try and make your breathing anything other than it is, just natural and gentle. Be aware of the sound of the bell, holding your attention there as long as you can hear it. And I won't ring it quite as hard. How is that?
Christina, I have a question for you.
Hi, Tim. Yes.
Yes, my question is, I've got a sound that's kind of underneath all the other sounds. Should I treat that as a form or a no form?
You have a sound that's underneath the other sounds.
Yes.
Can
It's,
you describe?
sure, I think it's probably a lot like tinnitus or something like that. And it's
Okay.
multi-noted. It's kind of like a chord on a guitar where I could pay attention to different tones if I wanted to.
Mhm.
The more I pay attention to them, I can get different notes out of them, higher notes, things like
Mm.
that.
Mhm.
And it's just something that's always there.
Mhm. Um, I would say there's a couple ways of answering that question, Tim, and thank you for it because it's a great question. From a perspective of Buddhist philosophy, in terms of what is form, what's considered form and not form, and I'm not going to answer it that way, but rather just from a very natural point of view that I think you could consider that a kind of a form in the sense of a support for your awareness or attention. Maybe that could be something, as you've said, that you've always had with you
So,
that
so it
brings
is,
your
it's something that I've
attention.
cultivated, and I've definitely
Hmm?
done that. It's something I cultivated, like I found the sound kind of thing. And yeah,
Mm.
I've definitely practiced a lot with it.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
you're
I would consider it a form.
okay, because before there was the question of there's the bell and the bell fades out and then there's nothing. And
Yes.
maybe the bell fades out and there's this sound. And so should I conceive of that as the not bell or should I conceive of it as just, like I said, a form? That's why I asked the question, kind of out of the
Mhm.
other question.
Um, in terms of focusing your mind, what works for you?
I can definitely get very focused with it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Then I would say consider it however is helpful for you to maintain single pointed focus with your mind.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Um, this meditation technique that we're working with tonight is a simple technique that uses, and when I say a form, in some ways, what I'm really saying is a focal point for attention, so that we can learn how to focus our attention single pointedly on some object. It could be something that we hear, it could be something that we see, it could also be something that we think, it could be simply our breath, something that's there in our body all the time. And so, starting a meditation practice is very helpful to have some focal point. Because what this allows us to do is develop the power of holding the mind wherever we place it. And that brings the benefits of allowing us to be less distracted. What are the benefits of being less distracted? Are there benefits of being less distracted? And what is distraction, actually?
For me, I'm Linda. For me, distraction before I started meditating was kind of a constant state of mind, which I think for me contributed to a lot of anxiety because the mind is going here and here and here and here and here. And so meditation for me is that practice of just finding that space to drop all of those thoughts. And I can carry some of that through my day or go back to that throughout my day, during stressful times or sad times.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Linda. Yes, anyone else? CL?
I was thinking, for me, when it worked best the second time when you were ringing the bell a little quieter. But the very first ring, after it stopped, I was incredibly aware of the space that I'm in and the sun shining on me and the plants outside the window. And so, in essence, by not being distracted in my mind, I could be so much more present for the beauty that is exactly around me right now. And at least for me, with what's going on in the world, that was very helpful.
Thank you. That's Allison. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Half of your face is in the sunlight.
I know I keep moving, but the sun's moving. And I'm on the edge of the
I'm
table
I'm getting the full experience of the sunlight that's there. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's quite beautiful. There are these rose plants and they're waving in the wind. So I'm seeing them and their shadow, and all of that's beautiful.
Beautiful. When you described that, Allison, what came to mind is a teaching that many great masters have given about the practice of meditation, which is simply returning to yourself, coming back home, bringing the mind home. So much of the time, it's scattered externally, objects here, this, there. But it's really, in its most simplistic, kind of bare bones presentation, a simple coming back to oneself in the present moment.
Yeah.
And
we're spending so much time at home right now, but we're also getting bombarded with, or we're choosing to listen to the news a lot. And so I just think in this time, that's just such a gift.
Thank you. It really is a gift. It really is a gift. And the beauty of using sensory forms, so sound, or it could be smell, it could be, again, sight, any of our five senses, taste. Now, if we were not virtual, we could definitely be using taste and smell. There's not yet been this technology where I could lit a stick of incense and you all could smell it. But I bet somebody somewhere is developing that. So I've just chosen tonight one that we can use in this format where we're together virtually, and that is sound. But we can use any of the objects of our senses to just be a focal point to bring our attention to and to hold it there. And that's the practice. Holding our attention on that focal point. And as it fades and dissolves, we dissolve with it. So let's do it again in just the same way, bringing your attention to the sound of the bell, holding your attention on the sound of the bell as you hear it, and as it fades, so you also dissolve with it. And was that a little bit easier on people's eardrums? The volume of the last ringing? Okay, a thumbs up on that. Yeah, I won't try and break your eardrums. My neighbor's cow and dogs were also vying to be the focal point for your attention. So that's the beauty of sound, right? There's most of the time there's sound around us of some sort. And when we become familiar of using objects of our senses as a way of just centering our attention on a focal point, meditation is really something that we can do everywhere, anywhere. And so this is a quick coming back home to ourselves, grounding, settling, and focusing. Now, the more that we develop and refine that practice through a formal session, the more that we can access it as we're going about our day. So I've just chosen tonight a bell, the sound of a bell, as a way of supporting that. There's plenty of other choices that we could make. What is the benefit of being able to hold our attention in a focused and concentrated way on an object?
Hello, Christina. It's Aaron. How you doing?
Good, Aaron. Welcome.
Good. So for me, the focused attention, as you know, I travel quite a bit. So to be able to kind of pick those items, and I spend a lot of time putting my earbuds in and maybe listening to a mantra or some chanting or something, because it's tough in an airport to pick out just one sound. There's so many of them. But for me, I have to focus on something because my mind not only scatters, but then it runs. It'll latch onto something, a thought, and it'll, of course, start running down a path and get pretty far away. So it makes it, for me, a scattered mind would be much easier to bring back fairly quickly. But when it latches onto something and starts running, it can run with that for days, whether it's, what's going to happen with the virus, or, a war in some distant land, or my job, or a kid's health, or whatever, pick your subject. So for me, being able to hold that attention, even if it's only for 15 minutes a couple times a day, just helps me to kind of intercept that rat race when when my mind latches onto it and starts to run. It kind of helps to kind of break that and help me come back much more quickly, rather than having it last minutes, hours, or sometimes days.
Thank you, Aaron. The marathon runner mind. I think we probably have all experienced that to some extent, right? Suddenly, minutes, hours even have gone by on a certain kind of train. You haven't even realized you've run half the marathon of that thought track. Yeah, what else? Yes. CL, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was struck by your comment about sound being a focal point, because it seems very helpful off the cushion, that allows you throughout the day to come back to be present, especially in a environment where distraction is the norm.
Yeah. Thank you for that, CL. And I would say, in the class that I was translating this winter, they were doing construction on the roof, which was just perfect timing. There we were, 40 people in a class on Buddhist philosophy, and they were doing construction on the roof right over the head of our heads. So we'd start our class, and then boom, boom, boom. So we can use sounds pleasant, unpleasant, irritating, whatever they are. And just as you said, CL, all over the place, wherever we are, as a way of just bringing ourselves back home, bringing the mind back to a focused point. We can use unpleasant sounds as that point. We can use pleasant sounds, pleasant smells, unpleasant smells. Yeah, thank you. Using sound as a focal point does just, like you said, Erin, enable, and yeah, if we're in a big open place where there's lots of dispersed sound, sure, then just as you've said, another technique, having a sound that's pleasant, putting on headphones and just staying with that. So the technique really is to use what works as a way of being able to focus our attention and hold it. What else are the benefits from being able to do that?
I was kind of thinking about maintaining an intention. So whether it's using a focal point that's an image or sound, or maybe it's even a thought. So if that gets strengthened, then if you're faced with something that isn't going to support your intention, you might be stronger.
Thank you, Allison. Can you say a little bit more about that, how that would work?
I mean, I was more thinking like in the context of the Bodhisattva class that you taught, or any kind of altruistic intention, you know? And then we're in this crazy world where everybody's like hoarding food and doing weird things, you know,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of fear. So
yeah,
that kind of a situation.
Yeah, it allows us to be more intentional. To, first of all, be more cognizant about what we're thinking, what we're feeling, more in touch with ourselves, and from that place, bring forth an intention. What is it that we have to offer or want to create, or what is ours to do at this moment in time? And then to stay with that, to not forget it, to have it be present. Even, and I would say especially in the kinds of circumstances that can be very anxiety producing, such as our situation in the world today.
Yeah, and also helping catch ourselves when we're not being cognizant, you know, or we're falling into some kind of fear or whatever.
Yeah. So oftentimes when we're distracted, we don't really even know what we're feeling, because the mind is just scattered and dispersed. Tibetan tradition has a way of talking about this, which translates something like just a kind of this black, endless fog. So, in fact, we just are removed fully from really even being cognizant of what are our thoughts, what are the emotions connected to those, what are we feeling in our body around that. So meditation practice essentially begins with giving us some tools to be able to be fully present with ourselves, in ourselves. And as we begin, and I would say as we continue lifelong, having a practice that grounds us by allowing the attention to be focused one-pointedly brings tremendous stability, mentally, physically, and emotionally. It's a place to return to. So we've explored a little bit how that could work with sound. And so if you were thinking, well, how do I actually even begin a practice like that? Am I going to just sit and ring a bell for myself? You certainly could do that. And there's plenty of apps where you can also do a self timer every 30 seconds. There'll be a chime, just as that focus, just as the form, whatever it may be, that gives you a focus. You might put an inspiring picture in front and have that be where you focus your attention. Now, let's try that. My guess is those of you who are not on video, let's see, well, we do have some people who are not on video. Or maybe your video is blocked, but is there anybody here who's just dialed in by phone that couldn't see me? I think so. Do we have anybody that's just on phone?
Yeah, there's one person, I think.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's Carol Pollard.
All right. Well, let's then, if we're not sure, if there's some people that couldn't see me, I was going to say, I'll be the form for the focus of our attention. But if it's possible, not everybody has that video capacity. So then let's do breath as the form. Oftentimes, breath is what is used as a focal point for meditation. And there's lots of different techniques of working with the breath. One of the great things about using the breath is it's something that we have with us all the time. One of the other benefits of using our breath is that breathing has a direct connection to our nervous system. And so when we use the breath as the focal point for meditation practice, there are beneficial effects in terms of just a calming effect on our entire nervous system that are just naturally part of that practice. So the way that I invite you all to explore using your breath as the focal point for meditation is to bring your attention as you hold yourself in a comfortable position, whether seated on a chair, whether seated on the ground, to the exhalation and gentle attention to that exhalation, so that you essentially just kind of ride it out, disappear with it. And you don't need to focus in any particular way on the inhale, because your body just knows how to do it and it does it naturally. And then you just ride the exhale out again and dissolve with it. You don't need to change your breathing in any way, elongate it or make it shorter. Hold it. Just need to breathe very naturally and normally. And just ride the exhalation out. Go with it. That's the focal point for your attention, and dissolve with it as it does. So that's the technique for using the breath. I'm going to set a timer for us, and let's try that for 2 minutes. How is that? Faith has a thumbs up. Gary has a thumbs up. James has a hand up. Oh, a wave. Piero has a wave. Anyone like to share their experience?
I find this way more congenial to me because it's less, I find it less disruptive than a sound.
Okay.
I kind of like to delve into nothingness. And
You don't like to delve into nothingness. Yeah.
And
Okay.
I just thought that by focusing on my breathing, it also makes me appreciate, especially now, what a beauty that is.
Yeah.
To be able to inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
And it's just more, it's my organism doing it, not an extraneous object interfering.
Yeah.
So it's just
Great.
on my own.
Great.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah. Who else? As Piero just said, breath you have with you all the time. Short sessions frequently is a great way to build a meditation practice. This is a practice that you can do also any place, anytime. In a break while you're working. If you're out and about, 2 or 3 minutes in between different appointments, if people are out and about. Many people are not out and about these days. But as you're out and about the rooms of your house, moving around the activities that you're finding now in your days, sitting 2 minutes and connecting back to your breath frequently throughout the day. 2, 3, 4 times, there's no limit to how much you could do it, is a way of building that muscle of focusing concentration. This is a technique we call shamatha meditation, and we're going to take a much deeper dive into this in the meditation course that we begin next week. So this is a little taste of it. Peaceful abiding, settling and dropping right down into a place of calmness. In essence, that's what this practice allows and makes possible. Who else has a question or a reflection? Shall we do it again? How about for 3 minutes this time? I don't see anyone saying no, so I'm going to go for it. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, I couldn't figure out how to make the meditation timer longer, but now I figured it out. And that's dangerous because it's just a slider. It easily goes longer. Let's do 3 minutes. Again, the same technique. Our attention comes to our breath, gently focusing on the exhale. We just ride the exhale out and dissolve with it as it does. We inhale naturally because our body knows how to do that. We don't have to think about it or do it in any kind of special way. And then right again, we're just traveling out with that exhale, dissolving as it does. How is that? Who would like to share?
It's very good because it's a very strong focal point. So, at first I was just totally immersed in the breathing. It was just all there was going on. And then my thoughts wandered and suddenly I wasn't aware of my breathing, but it provided a very concrete way to come back to as an anchor. So it's a very easy, pleasant technique, but also it's very easy to spot when you're suddenly not aware of your breathing. So it's easy to spot how your mind can wander as well.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah. Did anyone else have thoughts that arose? Couple people. Yeah, CL. You had two thoughts.
Yeah, that focusing on the exhale also lets you relax and open up. So it's not focused in a certain way. I mean, it really just opens you up.
Yeah. Thank you. That's right. I love this practice because it does that. It is a focal point to bring the attention, and yet it's also endowed with an expansive quality. So the question of thoughts, how do you deal with thoughts when they arise?
I mean, when I had the thought, I just noticed it and then went back to being aware of the breathing. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds so simple, right, Linda?
Well, I think I always struggle with the thoughts thing, and my goal is to not struggle, because the struggle gets in the way of the act of, just that gentle focus. So over time, I think what I've come to see is that there's what I'm working with my mind, and my goal is to kind of keep that in the forefront, because there's a lot of static that happens, and if I treat my thoughts more as static, then I don't hang on to them, I don't follow them. So I think that's been my goal. But I mean, it will be a thought of how, like, how long has it been, or the way it was before. I mean, and then just letting those go, because it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I don't know if I'm expressing that well, but I feel like in doing that, if I tune into it, there's that abiding presence throughout my day of just, it's not emptiness exactly, but maybe it is emptiness, I don't know. And the thoughts don't carry the import that they otherwise would have, whether I'm meditating or whether it's life.
Thank you, Linda. Something that I find helpful in terms of thinking is to just not mind. It's kind of funny, right? We know that mindfulness, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the course next week. What is mindfulness, actually? And if we even, sometimes when I think about the word being mindful, are we always full of our minds? In some ways, aren't our minds always full of thoughts? So this practice is one in which we stop owning and investing, as Erin said, following, entertaining, welcoming, inviting our thoughts. It absolutely is not a technique of suppressing them or trying to stop them. Thinking is the natural expressiveness of mind, of being a cognizant being. But this is the practice of starting to pay no mind to them. Thoughts will arise. We pay them no mind. Our attention's focused on the exhale. Because the beautiful thing about thoughts is that then they go away naturally, as a matter of course. Sometimes it doesn't seem that way. Sometimes it seems like some are really stubborn. They keep coming back. But have you ever had a single thought for your entire life? Has anyone here had one single thought that they've had from the moment that you were born? Or since you can remember, you were a thinking person? No. Well, has anyone? Maybe somebody has. Oh, I have to plug in my computer. Excuse me. I have 30 seconds left before my battery dies. So now we're going to the desk. So that's the beautiful part of thinking. Thoughts themselves, you don't have to teach them how to go away or dissolve. All we have to do is train ourselves in focusing the mind so that then they just go away by themselves. And that does take training. That's why meditation brings its benefits to us through a regular practice. It's not that just one time wouldn't be beneficial. It certainly can be. But what I encourage for anyone who's interested in experiencing the benefits of meditation is to do it regularly. And it doesn't have to be 20 minutes a day even as you begin your practice. What in some ways is more beneficial than forcing a longer period of time, say once or twice a week, is to do short sessions every day. And to even do short sessions throughout the day if your schedule and your capacity allows for that. And so these are two techniques that you can employ pretty much wherever you are. And to have a space in your house that is a place where you to come back home to yourself, sitting quietly, bringing your attention to the focal point, whichever one you choose, your breathing, the out breath, a sound, a picture, creates the habit in the body, in the mind, of stillness. And then throughout your day, as Linda was just describing, it's a place you can return to, and you can use sounds in your environment as that gong, whatever sound it might be. Bringing yourself back, resting there, focused, exhaling gently, dissolving with that for a few minutes. Practicing that way, short sessions, many times repeated throughout the day, is a great way to start to build a meditation practice and connect to some of the benefits. Questions, reflections, other thoughts, tips? Yes. Piero, did you have something?
I thought it was interesting. The second time, the refrigerator started humming. And that's probably one of the most pleasant sounds, the least interfering ones. It's almost like the ringing on your ears. So I thought it was interesting that at first it distracted me, but then I just let it go along with my breathing. It just was part of it, no problem. But it was just very comforting.
Yeah. So maybe that can be your gong, Piero. Every time you hear the refrigerator turn on and do its hum, that's your little cue. Oh, I'm going to take a moment of meditation right now. Come back to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit? Hi, I'm Janet.
Hi,
Can
Janet.
you talk a little bit more about using unpleasant sounds?
Yes. Well, and that's a great question, because whether or not a sound is pleasant or unpleasant is really not anything found in the sound, right? It's found in our own mind. One way we know that is because some sounds that are pleasant to some people are unpleasant to other people.
But in the middle of an unpleasant sound, then there's a feeling that comes up with it too. And it's not a pleasant feeling.
That's right. It's aversion. It's wanting to separate from what is discomfort or displeasing. Yes, yes. So this practice is also a practice that allows us to work with emotions in a very different kind of way than perhaps we usually do, which is when there's an emotion that comes, whatever emotion it is, it could be aversion, it could be attachment, it could be joy. We tend to be that emotion. And this practice allows us to notice that we're having an emotion. There's been an unpleasant sound. We have aversion to it. When we are able to have enough of a gap between ourselves and the emotion that we're experiencing, the power of that to disturb us or to carry us away, whether it's a pleasant emotion or a negative emotion, loses its hold somewhat. So that,
thank you.
Does
I
that,
was thinking
does that
in
help?
particular of when my daughter's banging her spoon on the side of the cereal bowl, and I feel annoyance.
Yeah. Yes. What do you do when that happens?
Well, sometimes I walk out of the room.
Yeah.
More than often that and it depends. It depends on the morning. But I feel aversion and annoyance, and I want to get out of there until she quits. Or I might tell her to, do you mind? That's like really annoying right now. But I am trying to push it away rather than using it. And I'd really love to use it instead of being annoyed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think knowing intellectually that our experiences, our emotional experiences, are subjective, and that there is the possibility for us in changing the way we think to change the flavor of our emotional experiences just in itself allows a bit more freedom and spaciousness in terms of how we are relating to those different emotions. Now, walking out of the room might be a very wise technique rather than being reactive to it. That might be the first step in a practice that leads to being present with a sound that's irritating and the aversion, the emotion of aversion or anger, whatever, that it arises in us. And this is a practice, I would say, that also, it's not just feelings that, it's not just thoughts that are not followed, but it's also our whole emotional experience. It's a practice that allows us to observe the emotion that's arising without being completely controlled and reacting to it. So you simply noticing, I'm feeling irritated at the sound of my daughter banging her spoon. And you ride out with the exhale.
Chris?
Yes.
Also, I mean, I find when I'm in those experiences, if I stop labeling it as, we know we don't like the sound of a spoon being banged against a bowl, but or it could be a horn honking behind me on the freeway or something. If I don't label it and just experience it as pure sound, then it becomes a tool for meditation instead of something that's trapping me in my own, neurosis.
Great.
Like not labeling it as anything and experiencing just as pure sensation is very liberating.
Yes. Thank you, Carol. Great. Yep. I think one of the reasons to really train ourselves with a meditation practice. And this very simple one of focusing on the exhale, riding out with it, and there's that gap dissolved. We just dissolved with it. Is that over time, that gap becomes more familiar. It may lengthen. And then when we're in the grip, going about our daily lives, as Carol said, there's a place that we can come to where we're less reactive, where we can connect to, this is a sensation, this is just a sound. Inherently, no sound is positive or negative in and of itself, right? And all we have to know is that music teaches this to us. I, the other day, asked my stepdaughter, what are you listening to? You've been listening to music, you're just with your headphones, and what are you listening to? Let me hear, what are you listening to? Here we are all day long in the house. You spent many hours listening to music, so let's listen to a song together. She played her song. I was like, please turn that off. I don't want to listen to that actually at all. But she's in a really happy state all day long listening to her music. Janet, is that helpful?
Yes, it is very helpful because I notice, I remember that when I get annoyed, then the storyline comes up. Or she's just doing it to annoy me. Well, really, she's just doing it because it makes her happy. Bang, 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 bang. So, and what Carol said is very helpful too. It's just a sound, and the storyline that's really a killer.
Yeah.
I gotta notice that, and that will, diffuse that whole thing.
Yeah. And the great freedom and power we have is to be in charge of our own storylines. Of course, that involves recognizing first and foremost what they are. But then because they're our own stories, we can decide to retell them or write a different chapter. And that's a freedom that we all have.
Hey, Chris, I wanted to add
Yes.
something, if I may.
Please. Yes.
Rinpoche gave me this teaching like a long time ago, and I would say that one of the biggest challenges for me, I beat myself up for a long time, because even though I can conceptually understand that the sound is a sound and it's not good or bad, but the emotions still come up. And so I told Rinpoche that, well, I still get annoyed when somebody's chewing loudly, even though I know it's in my head and it's not the sound and whatever. And he said, just keep doing it, keep doing the practice. Don't beat yourself up over getting annoyed, but if there's a gap between the emotion and the sound or the annoyance, whatever it is, then if you allow that gap to be there, it will continue to grow until years later it starts to actually emotions don't arise quite as much for certain circumstances. So I don't know. I felt like throwing that in there because there's a big difference between conceptualization and then the habitual tendency of what we've been doing for so many years.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. I think there's also, there's a part of it that we are very biased about our own emotions. We like the good ones, and we have aversion to the bad ones. We have aversion to having aversion. We don't want to feel the bad emotions. And so what if, it's all welcome. We just do a complete 180 on our entire emotional beings. Just bring it on. Whatever emotion it's going to be, welcome. Come on, welcome. Whatever thoughts, welcome. It's like the metaphor we find often in the teachings. How do you tame a wild horse? You just give it a huge meadow and let it just run. So what if you create just a huge spacious meadow for your entire conceptual and emotional experience to just do whatever it wishes to do? You can just observe. Let me know when you're done. Sometimes when we pay no mind to our aversion, pay no mind to our attachment, then also, as a matter of course, we can, in fact, get the wisdom that those emotional states hold for us. Aversion, in and of itself, isn't anything negative. It's our imputations about what's going on. The storyline about it, as you said, she's doing that to irritate me. Of its essence, aversion is wanting to be separate from something that's unwanted. So there's some wisdom in that. We're going to talk and practice with emotions over the 6-week course as well. We'll have one whole session that's really looking at how do we work with emotions in the context of our meditation practice. So I invite you all to join us with that and bring your emotional experiences. You can already start expanding your huge, wild meadow field to let your emotions run wild and bring that to the course. We'll work with that. Sometimes, it's aversion itself that causes more pain for us. Aversion to aversion, right? Aversion to having aversion. Anyone else? A question as we conclude tonight? Reflection, an insight they would like to share? Thank you all so very much for joining us. We are regular on Thursday nights, 7 o'clock. Please join us again here. And we welcome everyone who would like to be part of the 6-week Introduction to Meditation course as well, to join us next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock.
Chris,
Yes,
I have a question that may or may not be relevant to the rest of people. So I don't know if you want to wait till people get off, or I should ask now. I don't.
I tell you what, give it a shot, or why don't we just say thank you everyone who joined us tonight. We'll say goodbye for now. If you'd like to remain on and listen to Carol's question, you're most welcome. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you again next week, either on Thursday or on Tuesday or whenever your schedule allows. So wishing everyone a good night and safety and good health.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. See you Tuesday night.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Christine.
Look forward to it. Great.
So my question is, obviously, practicing and then, I have thoughts. Those are very recognizable. But what's happening more for me now is that instead of having thoughts, I slip into a mini dream state. And so they're like micro dreams in between, where my focus is or where my experience is. And so it's different than it used to be. I was just distracted by thinking. Now I slip into these little micro dreams. So when I gave the example before, I just noticed my thoughts. I simplified it because I actually had a micro dream, and they're not, you know, they're totally bizarre. They're not at all related to usually people I know or anything like that. Unknown people, unknown places. I wonder if you have any explanation.
When you say micro dream, help me understand what you mean by that.
Okay, I go into a dream state, but it's a micro dream because
Are you
it's not-
awake?
yeah, but it's a dream. It's not like I'm distracted, like to thinking, oh, you know, what am I going to have for dinner, or I need to do something. You know, that's just a normal thought. That's a distraction. This is literally a dream, but it's not like I fall asleep and I have a dream. They're like dreams, but they're clear to me as if it was a thought, and they're very quick, and then I go back to, you know, the presence that I'm experiencing. And it's very marked. It's completely different, and it's been going on for a couple of months. And I actually told Rinpoche about it, and he said, oh, that's very good, or something, but then I didn't pursue it. So I don't know what. I have no, yeah.
I don't know, Carol, but I guess what comes up for me when I hear you say that is the grosser level of conceptuality is more calm. And so it's in fact that more subtle, underlying, simmering kinds of subtle thought trains that are now more apparent to you and clear to you. Most of us have that running kind of under the current of grosser thoughts most of the time. And I wonder if one reason you're talking about it as a dream state is because for many people when they sleep, that subtler level appears and manifests in their dreams. But I would say, unless we're sleeping, well, I would say, when we sleep, then we have all those different kinds of experiences of dreams, which is also just the mind. It's just another expression of conceptual mind.
Right.
And so in some ways, this is maybe like more of a subtler expression of conceptual mind, because the grosser level of thinking is something through your own practice that has settled down as a matter of course over many, many years. That's just my and sometimes it's also taught that those subtler levels of thinking, while a sign of progress on the meditation path, can also be trickier to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely, like if you're lost in thought, you know, it's definitely taking you away from the presence, but it's like a Chagall painting, you know, they're like Chagall paintings, so anyway, but it's odd. I mean, it's a very different thing now. I of course, there's times I'm sitting and practicing and I start thinking, but it's more the interruption of just being in the presence is those dreams. Or that's something, you know, because like I said, it's not like I don't know the people, I don't know the situations. They're totally unrelated to, you know, something I might have done, you know, an hour before. Anyway.
So I would be curious about it in the context of the natural expressiveness of your own awareness.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't mind it. It's just different. I mean, do you know what neurofeedback is? Okay, so I did neurofeedback, and for a while, and I told the facilitator, she asked me, did you have any micro dreams? And that's where I got the expression from, because there'd be these dreams that even some of them could be longer. They seem like there's more of a story in them, but they're actually only a few seconds, you know? So anyway, so I don't know, I didn't stop to ask anybody in detail what they felt was going on. So I didn't ask her, and I didn't press Rinpoche on it. So I thought I would run it by you. It's still a distraction, like a thought is, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely the subconscious level is playing itself out more than the conscious level, which I would think is a good thing in a way, because to purify your mind, you have to purify the subconscious level too. But
well, for sure. You know, and I would say kind of accessing, for most people, the subtler level of conceptuality that can be, diving, kind of subconscious, sometimes barely conscious, subconscious, is harder to access when the gross level of thinking is still very strong.
Yeah.
And one wonderful question for Rinpoche might be, are there specific other techniques that are effective in working with that level? I'm sure there's some teachings about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah. Let us know what he says.
Yes, well, it'll be a while, I think, but
thank you for sharing that, Carol.
Yeah. And by the way, you have a beautiful environment behind you. Is this where you live in
Thank
Parping?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
So happy to see you. Yes, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, it was amazing, actually.
Chris, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
So this is Tara, and
hi.
Hi. So I've been writing a lot lately, and I'm noticing I'm a lot more invested in the thoughts that arise during my meditation because they seem really good, and I don't want to lose them. So I'm having this frustration, especially if I'm doing it in the morning. My early morning session is when I get a lot of my creativity is peaking. So I'm wondering how to deal with that. It's kind of a newer experience than I had before, where I could just let the thoughts go and I wasn't invested. But now I'm writing important material, and so. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I'm sort of struggling with. Sometimes I'll stop myself and write it down and then go back to it, and maybe that's good enough, But I don't know if I'm sort of.
Yeah, right. The brilliant insights that come. Well, I would say you could do maybe one of you could alternate and try. Yeah, there's a little piece of paper and a pen. So if something just like bubbles up that feels like, wow, you just write down one word. Or you continue on with your meditation practice, trusting that will be accessible to you when you're done with your session. If it is as brilliant, insightful, powerful, important as it seemed at the moment. And so you could either capture it with a word, and then at the end of your session, if you look at that word and you can't remember what the thought was about it, then maybe it wasn't, it wasn't necessarily what you needed to take away with. So you could probably, I would say, try it either way. See, and kind of trust. It'll be there for me at the end of the session. And if you really feel like you need to mark it down, just like, I would say just one word or a jot, not kind of really breaking a session. But I don't see anything wrong with doing that. Even, if you're doing a longer session and you come to a natural break in the session, right, where you've finished mantra recitation, or you're, in between doing confession and Dharmapala or whatever, where there's a natural break to jot down a few notes or something, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But then I would also kind of pay attention to then how much is that making a distraction for the whole practice that you're doing.
That was helpful. Thank you.
If I can add really briefly, this has been a really powerful practice for me since Rinpoche taught me how to meditate in 2001. The practice of trusting yourself that it either will be there when you're finished, or it wasn't that important to begin with. That's been a theme in terms of creativity and how meditation fuels that. So it's been a real powerful trust practice for my basic nature.
Yeah, I did notice that something new happened this evening with the technique that you introduced, Chris, around the breath and dissolving, because I haven't practiced that technique very much. And I've done other breathing, but not that one. But somehow it did allow for a subtler space of, it's okay, you don't have to be invested at all in the thoughts. It was like I went into a whole other sphere or realm or sense of consciousness that was much larger than the ordinary normal way of working with the thoughts as they come up as distractions. So I tend to be very high, like super thinking type of person all the time. So this is just really helpful to allow the breath to just dissolve out with the breath, and really appreciate being introduced to that more deeply tonight. So thanks a lot for that. And thanks for what you just said, Tracy, that was super helpful.
Great. I look forward to reading what you're writing, whatever it is. Yeah. All right, anyone else?
Sometimes I'm very forgetful, and I'll be practicing, and then suddenly, like, I thought, oh my God, my property taxes. And so I stopped and wrote it down on my phone, because I realized that, if another 10 days, I would have had a $1,000 fine. So like sometimes because I'm forgetful, something will surface there. I do stop and put it on my phone, because otherwise, less desirable things can happen. But I like you said, I notice I'm starting to do that too much. It's like, okay, Carol, this isn't the time to, log everything you're forgetting. Let's get back to just practice. So I like what you said about there's a balance. And you have to know for yourself when you're starting to just be, too distracted, or when you really do need to just, like write down, pay your taxes.
Yeah.
I forgot about that for 2 months in India.
I was noticing at one point recently that it wasn't the thoughts that I was so attracted to, it was the movement of the thoughts. That it was the instead of just being able to relax in the stillness, that I have always had this addiction to the movement of the thought, if that makes sense. So that was kind of interesting to notice. And just to, because there's almost like when you're totally still, and it's almost as if you could see all the millions and billions of molecules all around us that are constantly in motion. It's just sort of like slowing down to the stillness has its own motion. And I was able to really relax a lot of the thoughts that were arising, because I could just be with the stillness in a new way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we feel like dancing. It's true. Sometimes you're just like, you want to dance. And there's plenty of thought partners you can dance around with. Yeah. There can be some pleasure in that. That's true. It's true. And it has limitations, for sure. But maybe, sometimes we just need to do like a little foxtrot or something. But the question is, can you dance with the negative thoughts just the same you can with the positive, right? So that's where the attachment and aversion comes in as well. My guess is for an advanced practitioner, there's mastery, right? We always come across this word mastery. What does mastery mean? Sometimes I think it must be like, yeah, there's just, you have such exquisite control of your mind that engagement in thoughts doesn't change anything. You can dance with whoever you want, whenever you want, or you don't have to ever dance if you don't want.
That's very freeing. That means you're in a state of freedom.
I would think. I'm not in that state.
It
I'm
sounded like
imagining. I'm imagining what it must be like.
it sounded very freeing. Yes, I agree. Liberating. That's hey, liberation. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wonderful to connect with all of you tonight.
Yeah. Are you in lockdown there?
Yeah, we are. We are on lockdown, which I find quite appealing. I also think it's a wise move by the Nepali government before there's a huge influx of cases there. They're trying to get, things, they're trying to get on top of things. I think I have a visitor.
Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, why don't we let Chris go? I know she has other responsibilities this morning for her. So why don't we close the session and yeah, we can.
Okay, but we should say goodbye to her because she'll wonder where we went.
She's right here.
I'm back. Okay. No, I was going to introduce you to my my visitor, but she didn't come in. So next time we'll meditate.
I just wanted to say thank you again, and it's just so beautiful to see all your faces. Thank you.
Yes.
So happy to have you with us, Allison. Yeah. Thank you so much. And
Hero's coming.
Thank you so much.
look, there you are together.
Yeah, Christina, I was gonna close the drapes, but she was enjoying it.
No. Well, we were on different computers, but we are in the same house.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so happy that you joined us tonight, and
his two daughters.
Yeah.
So
and your two daughters.
In the end, they told me, I was just commenting about some of the good takeaways. They were all good,
Right.
but some of the special ones.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you. I was just thinking how interesting it was. Like if somebody's chewing loud and it was bothering him, maybe if he thinks, wow, that person's really enjoying their food, maybe then they won't bother you. And so I was telling my daughter, when you have annoying kids making annoying sounds at you as a speech therapist, and it's making you lose your patience, just think of their motivation, and maybe they'll stop on their own when they see that it doesn't annoy you.
Well, that's called wisdom.
Another weapon, with it. So,
yeah,
that is wisdom.
Even though it's not meditation, but it could be one way.
Oh,
Your life
it is.
agreeable.
Yeah, it's called smart reframing.
Yeah.
But I just really wanted to thank you for taking the time and creating this space for all of us to connect at a time when we're very, in our own little spaces. So,
Well,
sending love to Nepal too.
It's a pleasure. It's quite interesting, right? The physical distancing is bringing us closer in different ways. We hadn't necessarily imagined it, but let's use it for that.
Yeah.
Embrace that. All right, everyone. Have
Okay.
a good night.
Thank you so
Look
much.
forward to seeing you
See you next time.
Okay. Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.